pumpkin to become a golden carriage. Impossible.
The legendary Eartha Kitt lights up the stage at the Fair Park Music Hall as the fairy godmother in Dallas Summer Musical's Cinderella.
Such fal-de-ral and fiddly-dee of courses.
It's been a busy year for Miss Kitt. She has a hit Disney film and a new book, in addition to this national tour. It could stop a person half her age, an age she's proud to claim.
I was 73. So, well, you know, she's 73 years old. I said, and my daughter said, you try her. And it's wonderful to be able, and that's what I'm trying to say in the book. You never know what you're capable of doing until you try it. Because you have a number on you does not mean that you are supposed to just sit there and wait for the gods to come and take your hand. I don't believe in that. I still want to be functioning until the day the gods are going to come and say, okay, time for you to come home now. But you know, when I say I want to be with my feet in the air and my chaise lounge and saying, okay, you can come and get me now, you know, it's okay with me. I've done my thing.
It's amazing that you can still do that.
Yes, on a dare. Somebody dared me to have an audition for the Catherine Dunham Ballet Company, and I took the dare. And I won a full scholarship.
Wow.
And that's how I really got into the business. And then being in the school, Dunham School, about 3 months later, she chose me to be in the second company, which was in a play or a musical on Broadway with Ethel Waters and Avon Long and Bryan and all of those people, big names, Archie Savage, and all that. It was wonderful. Then we went across the country into Mexico, and we stayed there for a while, and then we went into California, went into Hollywood, and did a musical of Casbah with Tony Martin and Yvonne DiCarlo. And that's when I said my first line, "Come on, Pepe."
A great way to start.
Then we toured back across the United States, and that's how we wound up in Europe. We went into Europe, and Miss Dunham dared me in Paris to leave the company again. So I took the dare. And I didn't have any act or anything, but I said, I think I'll try that. Nothing to me is impossible until you try it. So that when you get to an age that I am at the moment, I'm going to be 3/4 of a century, and I'm very proud and very happy to be able to say that, 17th of January. And I will be in Boston. So anybody who wants to send me presents, send me land. I don't mind a diamond, but I think land is better.
Well, after a while, your priorities shift a little bit.
It's always been that way. My priorities haven't changed. I've always wanted land. I always thought that if a man really cares about me, he would give me land, because he knows on land I can survive. What am I going to do with a diamond? I'm so afraid somebody's going to take it. It gives me stress, because now we have to pay the insurance in order to have it insured. It's a lot of unnecessary stress that we don't need.
So there's a very practical woman underneath that Santa baby, love for sale persona.
I only sing the songs, I don't live them.
That deadpan delivery and, of course, the voice have won her new fans.
That's it, Grant. That's it. I'll get rid of Cusco.
The real Cusco?
Of course, the real Cusco. Don't you see? It's perfect. With him out of the way and no heir to the throne, I'll take over and rule the empire. Brilliant.
Even including young kids who come to me and want my autograph, and they say, oh, can I have the purr? And now it's with Emperor's New Groove, where she says, Yzma, she says, pull the lever, no wrong lever.
That role was delightful.
I love that role. I love doing things like that. And those two gentlemen who helped me with that, the directors, Roger and Andy, they were absolutely wonderful. Because they would be in Los Angeles sometimes, and I would be in New York sometimes. And we'd be watching each other on a monitor. And then there's a camera that's filming me as I'm doing the character. And it turned out to be so amusing. I really love that film. And you see, she's a very glamorous character. Because, you know, lots of times they call on us brown-skinned women to be negative personalities. And I never did like that.
You've always been outspoken, and it's cost you along the way, in some respects. I'm thinking now of the situation with LBJ.
I didn't lose myself, and I'm still You are still asking me about it. So the situation is still being talked about how wrong it was to assassinate someone work-wise because she told the truth or because he told the truth. If you ask me a question, particularly in cases like that, why is there so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America? We were invited, 50 of us women were invited to the White House luncheon. I was not invited to sing songs, but to give my opinions. And I worked with the young people across the United States. And their feeling was, why? What are we doing? And this is what I reported to Mrs. Johnson at that luncheon. And within 2 hours, I was out of work in my own country. He said, erase that woman. I don't want to see her face anywhere. That's what I read on my CIA dossier. Only a smidgen of it was given to me by Seymour Hersh because they called me in 1974 for permission to print it. Now, since 1968 to 1974, I was wondering, why did they reject my contract that I knew I had at the Coconut Grove? Why am I not being asked to return to the same places that I always had return engagements to? Out of work. I didn't know that my own government was working behind my back to put me out of work and to deface me in the eyes of the American public. And of course, here I was wondering where I'm going to pay my bills and how am I going to put myself back on my feet career-wise so that my baby and I could be comfortable. And he called, when he came to my house and asked me to do that, that was it. That was the chance I took, going back to Broadway without realizing how the American people would feel about me. I knew that the American people were really very much on my side in very many ways about my opinions about our involvement in Vietnam. But there's always somebody who's going to say, well, yes, but she insulted Lady Johnson. I didn't think that it was an insult. How can you tell the truth and be insulting? Particularly when you're asked a question. But at any rate, there's always somebody who's not going to give you work because they say she's a troublemaker. And I was not given work in the United States, not because I was a troublemaker in the eyes of the people that I'd been working for, but because they didn't want the CIA or the FBI on their doorsteps, and you can understand that.
But Broadway producer Jeffrey Holder called and cast her in Timbuktu.
And when I came out, and as I slid down his body and put my 2 feet on the stage like that and said, I'm here, that audience went absolutely crazy. They gave me a standing ovation.
Based on that alone. And it's all
And that, oh,
gravy from there.
That made me feel like I was just completely put back together again. And after that, I was okay. So thanks to the American public, everything was fine.
That's wonderful.
The interesting thing, though, that when I was in that position, not being able to work in America, and taking a stand against Vietnam, nobody wanted to be my friend. No one. Nobody called. My so-called best friends didn't call.
It'll give you
But
a
my
different
mother-in-law
opinion.
was there all the time. And Martin Luther King called. And he said, Eartha, you did the right thing at the right time in the right place. And I want to recommend you for the Peace Prize.
And nearly 40 years later, she's still making entrances.
I love the role because it's my public that has made me become my own fairy godmother. Up to then, I was Cinderella.
The orphan girl.
Right. So I'm very happy to be in the position that I'm in, and I'm very grateful, believe me. And I feel more put together today than I've ever have in my whole life. That is, emotionally, spiritually, as a woman, and particularly a woman of color. It's a wonderful feeling to realize that women particularly can look at me and say, everything is okay. No matter what color we are, we can do. We can make anything possible when we say it's impossible. And we can be very proud of ourselves. And we should feel that we are the most exciting people in the world because we are.
This is Kathy Whiteman reporting.